Well, friends, the comet Tri-I Atlas continues to amaze us with its oddities and mysteries. In recent weeks, several fresh observations have emerged that I want to share with you. We will have 3 news items, and as usual, the last one will be the most interesting. As of today, August 25th, the 3I Atlas is confidently moving towards Mars and is about 50 million kilometers away from us. Unfortunately, this month we were not delighted with new images. The last images were received from the Hubble telescope on July 21st, and since then, silence. However, during this time, new interesting observations have been made and hypotheses proposed. So, let's go in order. The comet has already begun to release water. Scientists reported this on August 6th, and by the way, information can be found on the Cornell website. Here's what they found. Triton Atlas ejects water vapor, not in droplets, but as a true fountain, almost 40 kilograms per second. This occurs at a distance 3.5 times farther from the Sun than Earth. Signs of water were detected in the spectrum using the Swift Ultraviolet Telescope, which is located on NASA's Orbital Observatory. What's unusual about this? Firstly, at such a distance from the star, water should not evaporate. Usually only carbon compounds are present. Secondly, to explain such a flow, the active surface must constitute more than 1/5 of the entire core's surface. In comparison, ordinary comets have this indicator of only 3 to 5%. This means that Tri-I Atlas is 4.5 times more active than all the comets we have seen in the solar system. And that's not all. In the spectrum of Tri-I Atlas, no traces of cyanogen gas have been found, which appears in our comets before water. This means that the chemistry of this object does not conform to familiar standards. We are facing something with a different chemical recipe, created in another world. Scientists propose 2 scenarios. The first, closer to the Sun, Tri-I Atlas will start emitting cyan, just with a delay. The second, more thrilling, is that we are observing a relic of an ancient water system formed before the universe was filled with heavy elements. In this case, Tri-I Atlas is not just a comet, but an ancient object from alien worlds. For accuracy, it is worth noting that we have encountered something similar in comets like Churyumov-Gerasimenko and Borovitskaya, which also had enormous snow particles. But Tri-I Atlas does it much brighter and more powerfully. Comets usually have their tails stretched towards the Sun, as solar wind and radiation blow gas and dust, creating the familiar glowing tail. However, with Tri-I Atlas, everything is different. It turned out that part of the glow was directed not from the Sun, but towards it. This was noted in photometry and spectrum. Photometry shows brightness and composition, and if you closely examine Hubble's images, you can see that the glowing dust seems to be moving towards the Sun. In its reports, NASA cautiously mentions that this resembles emissions directed towards the Sun, which are sometimes observed in rare comets when dust particles can be ejected from their bright side. Such solar tails were seen only in a few comets, and this is an extremely rare effect against the backdrop of the hundreds of objects we studied. Some independent researchers and our friend Overlock note that this may resemble a small comet more than a typical one. If the tail indeed moves forward and forms a glowing eagle, this may indicate an unusual composition of dust. Larger particles resist the pressure of the solar wind and, when ejected from the core, continue to move ahead of the comet. There is also a bolder version. Perhaps 3I Atlas can consciously clear the space in front of them, protecting themselves from collisions with asteroids on their long journey. In short, it could be an energy shield, or a completely crazy theory that it's actually an engine exhaust to slow down as they approach our system. The question, of course, remains open. What do you think about it? 3 Ayatollahs as a source of light. In conclusion, perhaps the boldest hypothesis is the assumption that the 3 Ayatollahs can generate light themselves. The problem is that the object is still too far away. There are fewer images than desired, and it is incredibly difficult to understand what we are seeing from them. The best image remains a frame from the Hubble telescope. A bright glow is visible at the front of 3 Ayatollahs moving towards the Sun, but the usual bright tail pointing in the opposite direction is absent. This glow could be explained by dust vaporizing from the illuminated side. A simple explanation. Professor Logo and his colleagues analyzed the light profile. In ordinary comets, the brightness decreases slowly as one moves away from the object's center, as clouds of dust and gas become less dense. This light profile is stretched, and brightness falls gradually. At 3 Ayatollahs, this decline is too sharp. In just 1 angular second at a distance of about 2,000 kilometers from the core, brightness drops almost 1,000 times. This means that the glow is concentrated in the very center and hardly illuminates the surrounding cloud dust. It sounds incredible, of course, but still, if the light were only reflected sunlight, the clouds of scattered particles would create a large and even aura. Here, however, it seems that the source of light is truly concentrated in the center. If the light emanates from the core, then as it spreads, the brightness abruptly fades, and there is no worthy illumination of the dense dust surrounding the core. And if the three ayatollahs emit their own light, their size could theoretically be much smaller than the unlikely 20 kilometers in diameter. As we remember, such brightness could only be achieved by an object of this size. Let's apply deductive logic together. Could this be an effect caused by sunlight reflecting off dust? No. An ordinary comet's light fades gradually, but for the Triatlas it happens much more abruptly, not according to familiar laws. It's ruled out that it's just dust. Perhaps it's the evaporation of icy particles, but that also doesn't explain such a brightness profile. Ruled out. Well, then the version remains that the eye atlas itself glows. How can we explain this from the perspective of natural phenomena? Let's assume it could be an internally heated core, but in that case, it should manifest in the infrared range, which is excluded. Could it be a glowing radioactive fragment from a supernova? But there are too few radioactive elements between the stars, making this almost impossible. Heating from friction with planetary dust doesn't fit either, as there's nothing to lose. Excluded. So what remains? Thus, excluding all natural explanations, we conclude that this object glows by itself and has no natural origin. Adding to this its flight trajectory and other oddities, it results in true fantasy. Well, I calm myself with this thought. If this is indeed a looming invasion or a rescue mission, then the global elite already knew about it and prepared shelters. But for now, everything seems simple, and life goes on more or less as usual. So for now, no panic. The closer it gets, the clearer it will be. As we mentioned, in October, 3 asteroids will pass very close to Mars, and Martian orbital telescopes will be observing them closely. I hope we finally get good images. After all, the more data we collect about this visitor, the closer we will be to understanding its nature. Thank you, friends. I will try to keep you updated on the events.